Last week, we hosted a debate with 4 of the contenders for the leadership of the Ontario PC Party. One of those was a last-minute addition, not well known to most people in the province. She is Tanya Granic Allen. We found out that she lives in Welbeck, Ontario. Always alert to the possibilities for better understanding the province, our Ontario hubs immediately wanted to know, where is Welbeck? Okay, joining us now on that from our studio at Western University in London, there's Mary Baxter, who heads our Southwestern Ontario hub. And here in studio, Jeganathan, our Ontario Hub's field producer. Welcome, one and all. Nice to see you two again. Let's just start with a clip. This was from a scrum that took place 8 days ago in this studio after the debate was over. Sheldon, roll clip, please.
Grey County, is that Owen Sound, or?
I'll let you look it up on Google Maps.
You live there, can you just tell us?
Yeah,
Okay, well, I don't live in Owen Sound, if that's your question. I live in Grey County, which does encapsulates some of that area there.
Like what town?
Okay, what town?
I live in, near Dornoch, Ontario. You don't know where that is because probably you've never been there, but right, so near Dornoch, Ontario. I live in a little town near Dornoch, Ontario.
What's it called?
It's the Pioneer Settlement of Welbeck.
Pioneer Settlement of Welbeck?
Welbeck.
Welbeck?
Correct.
Tanya, you can cut it off.
Okay, I've had enough, thank you.
Well, that's one way to end a scrum. Jeyan, where is the Pioneer Settlement of Welbeck anyway?
Well, I'll tell you this right off the bat. Just if you were to blink, you would miss it. That is how small it is. This community is about 175 kilometers northwest of Toronto, about a 2.5 hour drive. The closest, largest city would be Owen Sound, about 40 minutes south would be Welbeck. So this is a very rural community, lots of farming, windy roads, rivers, and this is part of the municipality of West Grey. So that is about 12,000 people, and if you're looking on a bigger scale, it is part of Grey County.
And you went there?
I did indeed.
Shall we have a little snippet of that?
Let's see.
Let's do it, Sheldon. Roll tape, please.
It was all done by hand. There was no saw in that bush. It was nothing that would help them. That was 1895, so, you know, that was always a prized picture. I would say by and large it's pretty conservative. For as many years as I've known anyway, it hasn't changed a whole lot. There are a lot of other things besides that. You know, people have many other needs in small communities, and I don't know what the split will be. I really don't know. I would say it was the last thing I'd ever think of somebody jumping into politics about, but hey, that's our democracy.
What else did you take a look at when you went up there for your video?
Yeah, so that's actually Bonnie Cross. That is she knows practically everyone in that community. She's the owner and operator of the local sawmill there. And that, if you haven't noticed, Welbeck is essentially, the cornerstone is the sawmill and the shingle mill. That is a place where people go during the summer season for tours. That shingle mill operates all summer long, and actually those are some of the shingles that go on the roofs for Southwest Ontario. So still operational, lots of tours, lots of history there. And I you know, was talking to people, talking to some farmers there, talking to people if they knew who Tanya Granic Allen was. Unfortunately, it didn't seem like a lot of people knew who she was when I got there. It seemed a lot of people knew about her after the debate. So very interesting in terms of the community there. Lots of people moving in to that area. Once was originally from 1845 was the first Irish European settlers that were moving in. They were taking about 100 acres of land. The deal that they were given was they had to essentially clear out about 12 acres of land and build a first structure, and one of the first structures there was the sawmill. It still stands there.
Very good. Mary, you went there too, I gather, for your article on TVO.org. Talk to Tanya as well?
Yes, I did talk to Tanya as well. So what I'm looking at is basically compiling a contemporary portrait of the area and doing it a bit from the perspective of Tanya's experiences, which are really reflective of a lot of people who have moved from the city into the area over the past several decades. And they've had, it's been a really interesting mix between kind of the newer residents and those who have been there for so many different generations. And it's curious because you'll find things that you may not find in other smaller communities. For instance, in nearby Durham, there's an art gallery, and Durham itself it's larger than Welbeck, but it's still not very large. They also put on an annual poetry festival, and local food is a really big issue there. It's one of the big centers of local food productions, actually, in southwestern Ontario.
Now, we should say, Mary, that if Tanya Granic Allen does run in the upcoming election in June, she's actually not going to run in that area where she lives, because that seat is already held by the Conservatives by a guy named Bill Walker, who's been there for a while. She's, I'm hearing, looking at Cambridge to run in there. But did you talk to Bill Walker? And if so, what did he have to say about Mrs. Granic Allen running?
Yes, I did. I did talk to Bill Walker. He didn't know, actually, just as Jeyan had mentioned, a lot of people didn't know that she had moved to the area until after the debate. But he's a Christine Elliott supporter, so I should say that up front. And he's saying locally that he's hearing a lot of support for Elliott as well as for Caroline Mulrooney, and that there's a fairly big sense locally that it's time for a female to lead. So that may have an impact with Tanya Granic Allen as well. But he cautioned against being too linear or special interest in thinking in terms of his party. What he told me is that we have to be very balanced. His goal is to represent the area, but also the province as a whole. We had an interesting little discussion about whether rural Ontario had become somewhat of a special interest group. And he agreed that there was polarization between rural Ontario and urban Ontario, and that you see that urban mindset in the current Liberal government in terms of something like wind turbine development in rural areas and the current concerns that have grown up. But he says it's really important for him as a legislator that he doesn't want to break the province down into urban and rural. He says we're all people governed by the province and the same legislators, and that's kind of the gist of I think how he feels about Tanya Granic Allen's candidacy as well.
Okay, Jeyan, let's finish up on this. You pointed out that a lot more people know her now that she's participated in that leaders' debate than knew her before. She, of course, got a lot of attention for her comments about her unhappiness with the sex ed curriculum changes in Ontario. Do you know whether her opinions on the sex ed changes reflect the community in which she lives?
In short, I'm going to say no. Small sample size that I chatted with. As we know, as Mary pointed out, this is a Conservative riding, has been for a while. But from the people that I've chatted with, it's not top of mind. Sex ed curriculum, and as you heard from the short clip from Bonnie, she was surprised that someone would jump into politics with just that one kind of issue being the forefront of their campaign. So there's lots of issues. I was chatting with a couple of people there, and they told me, the economy has always been one. Rising hydro costs is another. Sex ed is not a top of mind for a lot of these voters.
Okay, folks. Well, at least we now know where the pioneer settlement of Welbeck is, thanks to you too. Jeyan Jeganathan, Mary Baxter, good to have you on our program again.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.